Okay, morning and welcome to Superhero Webinar 69, which says that we're just over, well, in fact, almost 6 years now, one a month. And notice we've got a male and a female superhero nowadays, so we're sort of playing to both. And the webinar today is 6 sectors cyber safety. So, yeah, we've done this occasionally all the way through. Since the webinar, where we've actually invited some guest speakers to come on occasionally, speak about different things. And today we've got Robin Bennett.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. Robin will no doubt go through and explain his bio as he goes through, as what he's done in life, which I think is important. From my point of view, the important part with Robin is I met Robin, I think, when I first started taking will instructions 23 years ago, 24 years ago. And he was making some software, and he was writing some software at that point of view. So that's where I first get involved with Robin. So to me, he has two advantages, and we still use him a lot. I mean, even though Robin has his own company, Start Software, then I will always ring Robin up if we're thinking about doing something, going somewhere, buying something, purchasing some IT. I will never make that purchase or install that system without talking it through with Robin. So I suppose in some ways he's been like our IT director, free of charge for the last 24 years.
Now you come to mention it, yes.
Which, but his advantage is he knows, he understands the will writing industry because of the work he did in the early days with a piece of software there for drafting wills, and he also knows about security and software. So for me, he's always been my sounding voice. So that's where Robin comes from. Okay, well.
That's great. No, thanks, Clive. I'll just introduce myself and say good morning to you on this Monday morning. Just a couple of bits and pieces about me. Then, so I'm a fellow of the Institute of Analysts and Programmers. I'm also on a cybersecurity panel at the Institute. And I'm a member of the Institute of Directors. And with credentials like that, you don't get invited to many parties, I can tell you. But as Clive says, we do go back a long time. That's a bit about us. Can you, in your question window, in your chat window, can you just tell me what you do for a living? So tell me if you're a will writer or an IFA or an accountant or solicitor. So you should have a chat window there on your webinar screen. And if you can just type in, just tell me what you do. Thanks, Ian. Brilliant. Dennis, Richard, Mohammed, Penny. Fabulous. So we've got a mixture of mainly will writers, estate planners, IFAs. We have a mindfulness trainer, Hazel. Thank you very much. Financial advisors. Great. Perfect. That's really helpful. Thank you. That window, by the way, where you just type those things in, you can type questions at any time. We'll try and pick them up as we're going along, just makes it a bit more interactive, a bit more interesting for us and for you. So if any questions at all, anytime, just type them into that window and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I'm making no sense, Clive will elbow me and ask me to explain more about what it is we're talking about. So these are the topics today, 45 minutes or so, that's all. But I'm trying to give you a really good introduction into why cyber safety matters to you and to your business. How to protect your phone and your laptop, all about malware. Malware is just bad software that can get installed onto computers. So things like viruses, bots, spyware, ransomware. We'll talk about backups. Are they still needed in the days of the cloud? A lot of people don't think backups are needed anymore, but we'll cover that off as we're going along. Scams, how to spot them and how to avoid them. And finally, the big problem with emails and the solution. And that's the one really that I'm going to underline 3 times, and you'll be bored sick of me talking about the problem with emails by the end of the webinar, because it's a really big issue that we've all got to face. I mentioned that you can ask questions at any time there in your chat window. There is no such thing as a silly question, so ask anything you like. Saying there's no such thing as a silly question, and I told this story on Friday, so Clive's going to have to pretend to laugh this time like he did on Friday. But all my slides, or most of my slides, have got 6 bullet points. And there's a reason for that. I went across to the US to work with a company in Boston who I still work with. And one of the industry sort of legends, a guy called John Cullinan, was doing presentations all day, and I was watching this chat. This man supposedly had the world's first billion-dollar software company, a bit like Clive, but over in the US. And I watched him. Every slide he put up had 6 topics. And at the end of the day, I thought, well, I'm going to try and learn something from this chap. So I went up to him, introduced myself, said hello. I said, John, can you just tell me, why is it all of your slides have got 6 bullet points? Is that part of your success? And he says, well, it is. And the reason, Robin, is quite simple. 5 would be too few and 7 would be too many. So there you go. So there was my silly question, which he dealt with very nicely. But no such thing as a silly question. Ask whatever you want as you're going along, and we'll take it from there.
And if he's made $1 billion in the end, it's too bad at what he's done through life either.
Well, exactly. Now, so why is this all so important? Why is cybersecurity so important today? Well, I've literally, myself, my wife, my family, we just moved house last week, and I was reflecting on this when we were handed the big bunch of keys to the new house. And I thought, when I started in business 25 years ago, it was all about physical security. It was the locks on the door, the shutters on the window, security alarms. This is what we thought about, wasn't it? Fireproof safes. And obviously this is still important, but this is the new normal now, isn't it? Where we're interacting much less physically face-to-face. We're doing everything virtually, doing everything by laptop, by smartphone, everything's on the internet. So you have to think about security of your virtual world and your virtual business, just like you would have done previously with your physical business. And I imagine most of you are like me in that the things that you feel you need to protect now are things like your smartphone, your laptop. You know, these are the things that if you lost them, it would be as bad as losing your house keys or your wallet. I mean, my smartphone is the key to my car, for example. I don't have a key anymore, but my smartphone is the key to the car. So you've got to really think about the security of these electronic devices and your virtual world, just like you would have done with as much as you would have done with physical security. One of my early, I've got software businesses now, as Clive mentioned, in the UK, Australia, and the US, but one of my first jobs was at Midlands Electricity, which is one of the electricity companies that provided electricity in the UK. Really big organization. My late 20s, when I was there as IT manager, we had 5,000 PCs and a mainframe and all the rest of it. And it was the time the internet was just coming on stream. I remember doing a presentation to the board at the time, explaining about what an email was and what internet was and how this was all going to revolutionize the world. And the chief exec leant across to me at the end of the presentation, sort of moved his glasses to the end of his nose and looked down and said, well, Robin, this is all very fascinating, but I don't think this is going to catch on, do you? Well, I think it was proved to be wrong there, because of course the internet is everything for us now, isn't it? Business, social life, all revolves around the internet. Clive mentioned Will Writer for Windows. This was my introduction to Clive 25, 30 years ago. I wrote the first successful will writing software in the UK. Just out of interest, I asked this question on Friday's webinar. Does anybody remember Will Writer for Windows? Did anybody use it? I'm just waiting for some response. No, I think you're all scratching your heads. You're not old enough. No, that's all no's. No, what a shame. I mean, it's some of the ideas were actually, I suppose, are still in Countrywide legacy today in some respects.
Well, I mean, the Will Writer for Windows was a piece of software that we got involved with when I wanted to come off paper, because I was sick of processing documents for people, but consultants on the road whose writing I couldn't read, who only answer the questions they want to answer, don't answer the questions I need. So processing was a real problem. I went back to those same people. You moved on then, and it was David in Wales, to actually write a piece of software so we could transfer information from the consultant through to our central processing. So at least we got names, addresses, dates of birth, etc., correct. Didn't write the wills because we didn't need that to do that. We got our system here, but we wanted the information passed through, and that really was what, 17 years ago. So we haven't taken paper instructions, not for us to process from. Guys out in the field might take paper instructions, but when they send that information into us, it comes through to us electronically. And that was the best thing I ever did as a business owner in a will writing business is get rid of paper. Bottom line improves, everything gets better. So yes, I mean, and we then bought that company when David, who then run that company, wanted to retire. Because of the work he'd done for us, we bought the company, and that really is where the today Countrywide legacy. That's right. As a basis back there with us.
It is absolutely, yeah. And the original idea behind Will Writer for Windows was this idea of electronic data capture and transfer and getting rid of paper. So this gives me that history, that link back to will writing, but also this history of trying to understand security threats about as you transmit data electronically as opposed to on paper. Everything I'm going to tell you today, by the way, is real. None of these threats are hypothetical or theoretical. They're all issues that have happened. I said to me on this slide, it's not actually to me, I'd be the world's most unlucky person, but to clients of mine or people who've asked me to consult for them or to rescue situations. So these are all absolutely real threats. And what I'm going to do is I introduce each topic. I'm going to tell you some of the potential problems and issues that can be caused to you, your business, and to your clients. But believe me, they are all absolutely real. So I have first-hand experience of every single one of these. Sometimes when you read about security issues, it's sort of, you feel like it's something that happens to somebody else. Be under no illusion, this can happen to you. And just to underline, there's no prior knowledge needed. I'm not expecting any prior knowledge today at all. If I say something that makes no sense, like I say, Clive will interrupt me and elbow me. But hopefully, if you ask questions as we're going along, and it'll make it a nice interactive webinar. So let's start off with some real basics: protecting your phone and your laptop. So what's the risk if something goes wrong to your phone, your smartphone, or your laptop? Well, you can lose files, obviously. You can suffer a GDPR breach. So let's just mention GDPR. I'm sure you're all aware of what GDPR is, but just in case, to make sure we're on the same page, these are the new data protection regulations, which essentially say that you need to look after your client's data properly and securely, and you need to only use it for the purposes which they've given you the data for. So, for example, if you lost your laptop, you had client data on your laptop and your laptop wasn't secure, that is a GDPR breach. And companies now are starting to be fined. So originally you'd get sort of warnings, you'd have to report yourself to the appropriate bodies. Now you can actually be fined, and people are being fined for GDPR breaches. You can certainly lose clients. I've had clients who've lost clients because their client data has become public. They've had to tell their clients that they've lost their data, and they've lost clients because of it. So there's a real threat. You can lose your job. I had a client who left his laptop on a train because of the nature of the data on that laptop. He lost his job. So you can, if you work in a bigger organization, you can lose your job. You can also, and this is an interesting one, you can allow others to see your web history and emails. Now, if you think about the sorts of private conversations that you have now by email, the sorts of information you might be looking at on the web, you may not want other people to know what you've been looking at. I was telling Clive on Friday about the McDonald's chief exec. You've probably read about this one in the paper yourself. UK guy, he went up the ladder in McDonald's UK, went across to, I think it's Chicago where their base is, became the worldwide McDonald's chief exec. And there was a clash of culture. I think he was having a relationship with one of the members of staff at McDonald's, which was against their rules. He left, but he got a $57 million payout. Now, since leaving, they've looked at his computer, looked at his email history, and discovered that, in fact, he'd been sending emails that he probably shouldn't have been from his work computer. And they're trying to claw back now the $57 million that they gave him as a payout. So, that's an extreme example, but if you just think about the information that you have, the personal information to you that you have on your phone or your laptop, you can see why it's so important to protect them. So these are some of the risks. So let's just talk about your phone to begin with. Now, phones really, they're barely used as phones now, are they? You're using your smartphone for emails, for messaging, for internet banking, for apps. You probably aren't using it as a phone all that much, in truth. So the first thing you need to do is just consider how secure is it if you left it somewhere or it was stolen out of your pocket or your handbag. First level is obviously to put your password on. I still do meet people that don't have passwords on their smartphones. They just imagine that, that they just don't need them. You do. Make sure it's a secure password, and make sure it's not a password that you're typing when other people can see it. You need to protect that PIN or that password just like you would your PIN code on your bank card. So if you think about being at a cash machine and somebody's looking over your shoulder and you felt uncomfortable about them looking at you putting your PIN in, feel that uncomfortable when you're putting your code into your phone. So on a train or on public transport, just be careful who can see the code that's been put into your phone. Better still, enable the biosecurity. Biosecurity is just the security that comes from something to do with you. So your fingerprint, your facial recognition. Most smartphones now, Androids and Apples, have got that facility built in. Use it, and ideally use it as an extra level of security. So you've got your password and you've got your fingerprint or your facial recognition on. If you do those two things, your phone is actually pretty secure from somebody stealing it or you leaving it somewhere. But it's not secure at that point from somebody hacking your phone or accessing your phone or accessing a security loophole on your phone. And this is why you need to keep your phone updated. So all of the latest phones want to update themselves monthly. Google phones, so Android phones, that's your Samsungs and Sonys, your iPhones, they'll all prompt you to download the latest updates. Leave that automatic updating switched on, and your phone will constantly be getting the security updates that will keep your phone safe. The next one is an interesting one about posting, your number on social media. Now, when you're in business, you do want your phone number, obviously, to get out there, and you'll have it on your website, for example. You have it on things like LinkedIn, perhaps you might be putting up on there. Think twice, though, about putting it on social media, in particular. Someone's just, that's ironic, someone's just been saying it took them half an hour to get into the webinar this morning because of a cybersecurity glitch. There you go. Do think twice about putting your phone number on social media, in particular Facebook or Facebook Marketplace. Now, I actually fell foul of this one myself a few weeks ago. As I mentioned, we've just moved house. We were selling some furniture, put it on Facebook Marketplace, which is like eBay, but on Facebook. Somebody asked me a question. I thought, well, the easiest thing to do is for me to put my mobile phone number out. And I thought I was actually putting it out in a sort of a private message between me and this person. In fact, I was publishing it publicly. So my mobile number was out there on Facebook. Within days, I started to get random phone calls from mobile phones. And as soon as I answered them, the people at the other end would say, oh, hi, yeah, you've just phoned me. I've got a missed call. I hadn't phoned these people at all. To begin with, it was just slightly irritating. And as the days went on, I was getting more and more of these calls, these people thinking I'd phoned them. I was thinking, what's going on? Now, what happens here is that telemarketing companies who used to phone out and it would say withheld or private, and so people wouldn't pick up the call to them, are now going across the internet, finding real mobile phone numbers and using them as their outbound phone number. So when a telemarketing company calls, they might have my phone number that appears to be the number that's calling. That means that the reason they do it is you're more likely to pick up a call if it looks like it's from a real number. So unfortunately, what it causes is chaos for the person whose number's been spoofed. It's called spoofing. And I had days, I had weeks actually of this being a real issue. It's died off now, but there's not much you can do about it. So be careful about where you post your phone number. On Friday's webinar, when I mentioned this, a lot of questions came back in saying, well, we've got to give our number out. I mean, it's how we do business. Absolutely. Just think about where it is, though. Is it in a business context, so in your website, on LinkedIn? Is it on Facebook or Facebook Marketplace in particular seems to be the place that they're capturing these numbers. And finally, this one's a really good tip if you've not switched it on your phone. Let's suppose you leave your phone on a train, or you leave it in a services or whatever, or you just leave it somewhere and you can't find it. You then go and get yourself a replacement phone. Most phones now, in particular the Android and Apple phones, as soon as you switch the phone on, they want you to sign in with your account, your main sort of account, either an Apple account or a Gmail account, for example, if it's an Android phone. If you do that and you've had your phone backing up, all of your information pretty much comes straight back to your phone. It's as if you never lost your phone in the first place. So it'll bring back your apps, your settings, your emails, your messages, your contacts, and they'll all automatically restore. But you do need to make sure that your phone's backing up. So if you look in your phone settings, look for a backup option and make sure it's enabled. Your phone every night or once a week will automatically back itself up, and you get that opportunity to bring it back. Especially important, by the way, if you use WhatsApp on your phone. WhatsApp, the data only lives on your phone. So if you have lots and lots of WhatsApp messages between you and clients or you and colleagues, and you lose your phone and you haven't got your WhatsApp backed up, you lose everything. WhatsApp don't store their data in any central place. It's only on your phone. So just be aware of that and use the Google and Apple backups. They're really useful. A couple of questions that are coming in from people. Thanks for those. So Emma's asking, is it the same on my business page? No, I think if it's your business page, even on Facebook, I think you've got to put your phone number out there, otherwise you're not going to get any business. In particular, it seems to be the trading aspects of Facebook, so the Facebook marketplace. eBay won't even let you put your number on. Actually, they'll try and detect it and stop you. But it seems to be more the social media sales pages, part of the internet, that are particularly being trawled for these real numbers. When it happens to you, it's horrible, as I found out the other week. Your laptop, now there's a couple of interesting ones here. So again, I imagine for most of you, like for me, your business really is on your laptop. Lose your laptop and you're in a lot of trouble. Just have a think back to when you switched your laptop on this morning. So if you've got a Windows laptop, so it doesn't apply if you've got an Apple, but if you've got a Windows laptop, think about when did the first time that your laptop ask you for a password. Did you switch your laptop on? Did you see the Windows logos and all the rest come up on the screen, and then it asked you for your password? If that was the first time you saw a password, you might be surprised to know that that isn't secure. And if you had your laptop stolen or left it somewhere, anybody pretty much can take your data off that laptop within minutes, all of it. The Windows laptop, it might surprise you, doesn't protect the data that's on the disk that's in the laptop. The only way of protecting that is to use what's called a boot or BIOS password. You'll know you've got one because when you switch your laptop on, as soon as you switch it on, before anything else happens, before you see the Windows screen, you'll get prompted to put your password in. Or on some laptops, mine included, you can use your fingerprint scanner or a facial recognition at that point as well. But it's before Windows starts. Now, boot or BIOS passwords, they're not the easiest things to set. Most laptops can have them, but they can be a little bit tricky to set. So you might have to ask a friend or ask your IT support person how to put this password on. But if you haven't got one, so just think back to this morning, we'll try it later on today, switch your laptop on. Do you see the Windows logo before you get asked your password? If you do, that password is not secure, okay? It only stops somebody from accessing Windows essentially in your programs. It doesn't stop somebody from taking the disk out of your laptop and connecting it up to another machine and accessing all your data. So you need a boot or BIOS password. Get a friend or your IT company to show you how to do it. Enable biosecurity on your laptops if you can. Again, you've got fingerprint scanners, facial recognition now built into laptops, much better than just having a password. If you do only have a password, make sure it's a strong one. So no dates of birth, eldest child, youngest child, cat name, whatever. Nothing that somebody could guess or work out from you. Make sure it's a strong password, change it often. Be wary of who's watching you. This is one I get all the time. This is why I put the picture here of the person on the train here. You're amazed how many times you're on the train and the person next to you is doing some really confidential business, and you can just read everything that's going on. It's like they imagine that there's a wall between you yourself, or on planes as well now, people using laptops on planes all the time. Or you overhear conversations which really you shouldn't, or indeed people buying things over the phone, reading out their card numbers and their security codes and things. Just be careful who's watching you on public transport. I've got one case in particular of a client of mine who lost data because of that situation. He'd been overheard on a train. Have auto updates enabled. Again, that's Windows and the Apple operating system iOS. They want to update you regularly. I know it's a pain because when the update comes, your machine's busy for half an hour and it's really annoying. but it's really important. The Microsoft and Apple have got really good now at getting slightly ahead of the hackers. So when the security problems are spotted, they automatically update the operating system, and that protects you and your computer and your data. Use the cloud if you can. So traditionally, people would save files to their laptop or to their PC. Now, when you switch on Windows for the first time, it actually wants you to save to Microsoft's cloud. That's where the data is actually being stored. So if you use Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, the Apple equivalent, your data is actually being stored in the cloud, in other words, remotely, automatically. That means if you lose your laptop or it's stolen or it breaks, you can just use another laptop, sign in, you've got access to all your files. So that's another really good tip to protect yourself. There's also a type of laptop called a Chromebook, where the files are always in the cloud. You can't choose to store them on your device. Again, makes it really secure, so you can effectively lose your laptop and not worry about it because there's no data on there. And take regular backups. Now, this is still important. You might think, well, all my files are in the cloud, but actually they might not all be in the cloud. You might have wills that you've downloaded to work on, invoices that you've downloaded. You might have contacts that are just on your laptop. There's all sorts of things. Even your emails might just be on your laptop. Take regular backups. We'll come to backups a bit later on, but there's many occasions when I've been saved by having a backup of my laptop, even if it's a week old. It can be better than nothing. A few questions about using the cloud coming in. How does it work? How do you restrict people accessing your data? Normally, your cloud account is just tied to you. So when you log into Google or when you log into Microsoft or Apple, the files that you save are just in your personal cloud. You can choose to share them if you want to, and that's a really powerful feature of the cloud these days. So I could save a Word document and I could share it with Clive. Clive could look at it, he could comment on it perhaps, or indeed edit it, and it would be shared between us, but I'd have to choose to do that. Clive couldn't see my data otherwise. So the cloud is secure, and it's perfectly okay to put your data in your cloud for that purpose. Let's talk about viruses next. Hope that was useful so far. Viruses, malware. So malware just means bad software, software that ends up on your computer and you really don't want it to be. Viruses used to be the big risk here with malware. Now there are things called bots and ransomware I'm going to talk about in particular. The risk, well, you could lose clients, you could lose money, you'll certainly lose time and lose sleep if you get a virus. Quick show of hands, please. Can you just type in yes if you've had a virus ever on your computer? And I'll see what proportion it is of the total number of people on the webinar. Yeah, lots of yeses coming in. I'd be surprised actually if it wasn't at least, lots and lots and lots of yeses. Thank you so much, Claire, Dennis, Nigel, Caroline, Phil, Jill, Mohammed, Annette, Richard. Yeah, viruses are horrible. And I would say of my contacts, most people have had viruses. I know
we've certainly had one. Yeah, we should. We had a virus in, I think, probably about 4 years ago now, and we had to shut all our PCs down in the business, so we could do nothing for that period of time. We had to clear all of the PCs with everything that got on them, but luckily we update all the time, so it's a continuous update on a server. It's in, I mean, you call it the cloud, it's actually in Northampton. And basically then once we'd cleared all the PCs, we reloaded everything back on those PCs. So luckily we didn't have a problem.
We say lucky. We say
lost 24 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, you say luckily, it wasn't luck. It'll be because your IT company put a process in place to protect you.
And I suppose we've moved on over time. I remember the time we were taking a disc off every night, and one of us took that home with us. And we went to 4, so over a period of time, you just do more and more and more and more because the problem.
That's right. Yeah. So we've got Richard saying paper rules here on our chat window. You're probably not wrong, but paper has its own issues. Ultimately, if you get a serious enough virus incident in your business or on your laptop, you could lose your business. And I have incidents of clients and people that have come to me for help, and they have lost their business because it's been so bad, and I'll cover that off in a sec. So what can we do about viruses and other types of bad software, malware as it's called? Firstly, set your PC to update. I've mentioned that already. If Windows on your PC is updating every month, you're getting a certain level of protection. Secondly, install the best antivirus you can. People sometimes say to me, oh, I've got this fantastic antivirus program, it's free. Well, those are two different things, aren't they? It may be a fantastic program and it may be free, but they're not connected. You know, there is a reason you have to buy some software, and that's because you need, people to update it and work on it and support it. So buy the best antivirus software you can. Keep that updated. Don't just install it and forget about it. Make sure you're using the annual subscriptions so that the antivirus has been updated. It's an arms race. The virus writers, the antivirus writers are constantly battling each other to see who can win. It is genuinely an arms race. Be wary and use common sense and think before you click. This is such an important one. If you get a message, you're on some website on the internet, perhaps it's not particularly the mainstream internet, let me put it that way. Perhaps it's somewhere down a bit of a dark alley on the internet and you've ended up there. And a message pops up on the screen that says, warning, your PC has a virus. Click here to download an antivirus program. Well, to be quite honestly, you're crazy if you do that. That is going to be a scam. It's not an antivirus program that's going to download, it's the virus. And in fact, that's one of the most common ways of getting a virus now, is being on a web page, on an internet page that pops up one of these messages and you click on it. So just be careful. Obviously, I think everybody knows now about being careful about attachments that come to you by email, especially from people you don't know, but it could be from someone you do know. And the days of swapping disks or USB sticks is sort of getting a little bit old-fashioned now. So the risks tend to be virtual rather than physical, but just be careful and use your common sense. Don't click on something unless you're absolutely sure where it's coming from. Save your files to the cloud. I've already mentioned the cloud. Here's another reason it's a good idea. The cloud is a safer place to be. It's more tolerant and sort of secure against viruses. So that's a good thing to do anyway. And if you do get a virus, get professional help early. The number of people that say to me, well, I got a virus and I think I downloaded something to clear it and I think it's gone, but I'm not sure, but my PC is still running a bit slow, and they sort of muddle along, and then 2 weeks later, disaster strikes. And in fact, they didn't get rid of the virus at all. You've got to get some professional help early here. So lots of people asking about recommendations for antivirus programs. Norton is probably the one that's the best supported. They've got a special offer one at the moment. They've always got a special offer. It's a bit like DFS and the carpets or the sofa people. But that's probably the most well-known. A couple of people saying don't use Kaspersky because it's Russian. That's up to you. You're probably right. I mean, Norton is probably the one that most people go for. To be honest, if you're internet bank, which I'm sure you all do now, most of the internet banks promote their own antivirus software. They've got a tie-in with an antivirus brand, and they'll encourage you to buy it through the internet banking website. That can be a very good deal. It can be a lot cheaper than buying it straight off the internet or going into PC World or whatever. So that's a good idea. Someone asking what a bot is. Well, a bot is software. It's a bit like a virus. It installs on your computer without you realizing, and it's monitoring what you're doing. So it's monitoring your keystrokes, it's monitoring the web pages you're on, it's monitoring all the activity, and this bot can be remotely controlled by somebody. A bot was one of the reasons that one of my clients went bust, actually. They had to close their business because it had been monitoring what they were doing, and they started to lose money through internet transactions, and their email server was hacked because of it. They had no idea they had on the machine. It doesn't show, it doesn't slow your PC down particularly. Again, antivirus software is the common sense. A few people recommending their own solutions here for antivirus. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of good ones, lots of reviews on the web, but like I say, don't go with the free ones unless you're sure that it's the right decision, because paying £30 a year for antivirus, if it saves your business, is money well spent. Let's just talk a little bit more about ransomware. Ransomware is my pet hate. Ransomware is the software that it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And if you've not had it, that's great news. If you have had ransomware, you'll know about it. Now, ransomware is a type of malware. It's like a virus, gets on your machine, and then what it does is it encrypts all of the information on your laptop. If you're connected to a server, it can encrypt all the information on the server, and it encrypts it in a form which cannot be cracked. It cannot be decrypted unless you've got the key. You cannot take your laptop into PC World and say, oh, I've got ransomware, can you sort it out for me? The answer is they won't be able to. What happens is you'll click on a file or try and open your emails, and a message will pop up that says your files are encrypted. To decrypt, send a ransom, literally a ransom, to an email address. They'll want paying in bitcoins. Bitcoins are an internet currency. You can buy them on the internet like you can buy any other currency. They want paying in bitcoins, and they'll try and get as much money from you as they can. So if you're working from home, you're a small business, they might ask you for £1,000. If you're a big company like Garmin, so I've put the slide up there on the news article on the slide here. Garmin reportedly paid $10 million a month ago to get their files decrypted. That was what they were. That was the ransom that was demanded from them, $10 million. Garmin are the people that make the sat navs, you know, for cars and for motorbikes and bikes and the sports watches and things. Their entire worldwide network went down because of ransomware. And they decided that the only way they could get their systems back quickly was to pay the ransom. It shows you're vulnerable. If you do end up paying the ransom, it shows you're vulnerable. So you then know that you're going to get bombarded forevermore by other people trying to demand ransoms from you. Yeah, Duncan just said, wow, there on the chat. It is incredible, and it cripples your machine. It just utterly cripples you. And for as long as you've got the ransomware on your machine, you are stuck. You cannot do a thing. It's horrible. I have several cases where I've been asked to get involved, and because the company didn't have a backup, because that's your only other mechanism here. If you get ransomware, you've only got two choices, well, three choices, I suppose. You give up, so you just accept that you're not going to get that information back. You pay the ransom and you hope you're going to get your data back. Of course, you might not get your data back. They might give you the wrong key or then demand a bigger ransom. You know, you've got no way of knowing. Or you get your information back from a backup. There are no other options. Question there from Dean: if you pay the ransom, do they always let you back in again? No. Very often the process that they'll give you the key, so you'll pay your £1,000 or in Bitcoin equivalent. They'll give you the key, you put the key in, and then it'll say there's a problem decrypting, contact them again. So no, absolutely not, Dean. If you, just like with any, I guess with any ransom situation, you can't guarantee that even paying up gets you back in.
I don't know, you can never trust criminals, can you?
Exactly, and that's a good point. The people behind this are organised crime gangs. And in fact, yeah, you do need to tell if you're scammed or you get a ransomware, it's worth telling the police, because organised crime is behind this. So I mentioned from ransomware, one of the only ways to recover your information is actually from a backup. If you can't get the files decrypted, then a backup can be the only way of getting your information back. So this is one of the reasons why backups are still important. It's something like 45% of businesses who suffer a catastrophe with their servers, whether that's a fire or ransomware, 45% of businesses fail. They just don't get back going again. So it's really grim, and fires happen. I've had clients who've had fires in their server rooms. They've lost their servers. Some have survived, some haven't, depending on the situation with their backups. But you know, disasters do happen. They can happen to laptops, they can happen to servers. Even cloud services fail. We have about 100, 150 servers as a software company out there in the cloud. They're based in data centers around the UK and the US in particular. We've had situations where they've had air conditioning failures and a whole room of servers has failed because they've all overheated. So even cloud servers can fail. So you need to have a backup mechanism, even if you store your data in the cloud. Backups, you can back up your phone now. I mentioned that earlier. You can switch your automatic backups on. That protects your smartphone. You can back up your laptop. There are lots of cloud backup services. You can have services that back up your cloud documents to another cloud. So you can have your Google Cloud documents backed up to Microsoft, or Microsoft back or to Google, or Microsoft back to your laptop and Google to your laptop. All of these things can be automated. Clive mentioned the old days where you had to sort of plug in a disk as before you went home at the end of the night and click a button perhaps, and you know there were 2 or 3 disks you had to swap in, you know, daily. You don't have to do that anymore. It can be automated. The critical thing though is this third point on the bullet on the slide here. The critical point is that you need to check your backups. Now, if you've got an IT company, if you're relaxed at this point and you're thinking, well, my IT company deals with my backups, don't be relaxed. Lean forward and listen to what I'm about to say. You must ask your IT company to prove to you that they are checking the backups. An unverified backup is worthless. And it's the most common call I get when people are in crisis is they've lost a server, lost a laptop, lost whatever to whatever hardware problem or fire or whatever it might be. They've come to use their backup and they found their backup is useless. They've been doing something or something's been set up in place for months, for years, for whatever, and they've never actually tried to restore their data. And when they come to try to restore, they realize they haven't been backing up at all, or they've not been backing up what they thought they were, or the backup's a year old because something else has failed. You must get your IT person to check them and get them to prove to you. Just run a scenario, just run it through. Imagine if your server or your laptop had failed, and say, get them to come in for an hour or two and say, right, show me how you would restore this to a brand new machine. I almost guarantee they'll have a problem because all IT services companies, you know, they're as bad as anybody else. You know, they almost all aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is checking the backups. So get them to check the backups and get them to prove to you that they're doing that. Use cloud backup services, as I mentioned, and indeed, if you need to get your data restored, get professional help early. Okay, again, questions worried about security and about if you're using cloud backup services, how can you tell they're secure? Well, you've got some issues to cover off for sure. So depending on what sort of business you're transacting here in the UK, you might have to be sure that your cloud backup is based in the UK, for example. So if it's regulated business, then that's certainly the case in some situations. So you might just have to go with a cloud backup provider that's UK based. Go with the big companies. Smaller companies, lots of them have failed over the years. So backup services have either been have had data breaches or have just simply failed overnight. So go with the big companies. Go with Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon. Amazon are the world's biggest provider of cloud computing, would you believe? That's Amazon, the shopping people. They also are the world's biggest provider of cloud services. All of those services are super secure. So as long as you've got a secure password and you're following all of their advice about security, your data will be secure. Can you recommend simple backup software? Yeah, there's various. I won't recommend any in particular. It depends on the sort of backup that you're trying to organize. It can be a case of just half an hour of professional help here will solve the problem for you. Things like LiveDrive aren't bad. So LiveDrive is a cloud backup service that backs up from your machine to the cloud. But again, yeah, there's lots of them about. So you can Google it. You can look on the Witch website. It's very good for things like this. That gives you impartial advice. Scams, let's go on to scams. So scams are where people are trying to extract information or money from you by tricking you. And unfortunately, the world is full of scammers. The risk to you is generally small financial risk. So generally speaking, you won't lose your business over this, but you might lose a few £100 or a few £1,000. So generally fairly low level. The biggest problem with scams is once you've fallen for one scam, you're then on a list of all of the scammers and you'll be bombarded by scams forevermore. This is the problem. Scammers do not worry about GDPR. Yeah, they don't sort of protect your data. They share data. So once they know that someone's vulnerable, they share your email address, your phone number, whatever, and they share it around. So you're constantly bombarded by scammers. Top 5 scams going on at the moment. It'd be interesting to see how many people have had these themselves. Probably most of you. Phishing, this is emails that appear to come from trusted sources. So I might get an email that looks like it's come from Vicky here at Countrywide. In fact, it hasn't come from Vicky. It's been spoofed. Very easy to do. I can send an email appearing to come from somebody else. And there's something in it that says, oh, this is great. Watch this video, click here, download this. Just, you know, if you're not expecting an email, just don't do it. And be suspicious about any email that you receive. Essentially, come on to emails again in a moment.
And they're happening all the time. I mean, we see this, you know, fairly big company. We do a lot of transactions money-wise, you know, out from both the live trust department and probate. So a lot of money going in and out of the business daily. And we see this on a regular basis, which is why basically we've come off email. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think companies will be using email in a couple of years' time. It's totally unsecure. If we're going to pass a message through from maybe one department to another, the accounts department, to send some money, then if you're sending that message over email, you're just asking for problems at the end of the day that somebody will and that's what's happened with us. Our accounts department will quite regularly get an email suggesting that me or Bob, somebody else, could you quickly and urgently transmit some money? And it's amazing what they find out, because one day Liz, our accountant, was off and Debbie was working, and they sent the email to Debbie saying, I realise you're off work, Liz, so Debbie, can you transfer this money? How the hell they knew that Liz was off work that day and go to Debbie, who knows? But that's the sort of thing we're seeing on a regular basis. So it stopped the emails. I think at the end of the day, for me, as a business, I would think in probably 2 years' time, we ain't going to be using email for anything. It's gone. There are a lot more secure ways of communicating. You just got to put the systems in place, and it won't happen overnight, but it will happen over a period of time. Just slowly get rid of the information that currently passes over email.
Fake antivirus software is a very common one. So something that I mentioned this before, a message comes up on your screen that says, click here to download antivirus. It's the virus. No, just be suspicious. Do not believe anything that pops up. The more it sort of flashes and the more garish the instruction, or the more urgent the instruction, the more you know it's actually a scam. Lots of scams are going around to make money easy and fast. There is no, well, I've been in this 30 years. There's no easy way to make money, I don't think, apart from will writing, apparently. Fake shopping websites, they're quite common now. So you slightly mistype a website like Amazon, for example, get the letters mixed up. You're on a site that looks like Amazon but isn't Amazon. The way to be sure is on the website, and the address bar at the top, you've got that lock symbol. That tells you it's a secure website. If you click it, it'll give you more information about the website behind. And fake tech support calls and emails. Lots of people putting messages on the chat for us saying, yeah, PayPal, HMRC, television license. You'll get a phone call out of the blue to say, yeah, we've got some money that we owe you, or you've got a virus on your computer or something. And you go along with it, and all of a sudden you're 50 quid down or 100 quid down, or they've got access to your computer. Just be skeptical, skeptical.
And professionals today are still doing that. I've got emails recently from people that work with us saying, basically, ardent professionals who've had a letter from HMRC saying the client's not paid the money, and coming on to us saying, well, you should have paid them. There's no money to pay. It's a fake email that's coming through. Yeah. And I hope that somebody will react.
And they're very believable. I mean, that's the problem. They're very believable. Watch out for phone calls as well. Phone calls, texts, even WhatsApps can all be faked. So you've just got to have your wits about you and not be. There's a particular WhatsApp scam going around at the moment that's catching people out to do with buying Amazon gift vouchers. Just be really skeptical and sort of just think before you act on any message. Use your common sense. Don't pass on helpful warnings. Facebook, a number of people that email me and say, oh, Robin, I know you're into cybersecurity. Here's an important one at the moment. If you answer a phone call from this number, then all of your phone gets melted and your hair will fall out, and please pass it on. These are never helpful. These are never true. They're all scams in themselves. People just send them out of, mischief, really. So don't pass on warnings that get sent to you. Just delete them. Keep your contact details private, I mentioned before. And as I said before, most of the viruses, scams, they're actually who's behind them ultimately are organized crime gangs. You might surprise you. It's not people working from their bedrooms and just having fun. It's organized crime, and they get a lot of money from this. So if you've been ransomwared, if you've been subjected to a scam, either report it to the police, or there's a couple of government websites you can report it to. They probably won't act on your particular case, unfortunately, depending on how much money you've lost, but they will. They look at the whole weight of evidence and then take action. And in fact, last month, there was a very large organised crime gang that was taken down because of people reporting things. Right, so Clive's mentioned this is the last topic we're going to cover today. This is about emails, and hopefully, even if you've not learnt anything so far, what I'm about to tell you, I think will be news to most people. There is a huge problem with emails. Email, and not just the fact that you're probably getting hundreds of them a day and you've got to respond to them. That's not the main problem. The main problem with emails is they are not secure. And I'll explain why in a second. The risk, and again, all of these are real situations that have happened to my clients. You could lose clients over problems with emails. You could embarrass yourself in lots of different ways. You could certainly lose money, and sizable amounts of money. Hundreds of thousands of pounds in certain cases that I've been involved with. Ultimately, you can lose your business if you don't act and change the way you're using emails in your in your company. I'll just say that again. You could lose your business. I have personal experience of clients of mine who have lost their businesses ultimately because of problems with emails. And the root cause is that emails were invented 30 years ago. The whole process of sending emails, nobody thought about hackers, nobody thought about security. And at its core, emails are not secure. Okay, they are simply not secure. Now I've just got a couple of little videos to show you a couple of scenarios, and then I'll explain what this is about. I just need to switch over.
So, your client has sold their house. Good news, it's time to get their bank details. Wait, are you going to ask your client's bank details by email? Stop. Emails are not secure. What if a hacker intercepts the email? They could swap your client's bank details for their own. You pay thousands of pounds into the wrong account. A disaster for you and your client. Alpha Legal is the solution. Alpha Legal, easy, safe, and secure.
Hopefully you all got to hear that okay. Let me slide. Oh yeah, let me just go back on that one. Hopefully you heard that okay. And the thing that might surprise you is the fact that emails are not secure and can be intercepted. And that's the bit that surprises people. They can be intercepted and altered. You might think, okay, well, is that possible even if I'm using PDF, for example? If I send a PDF in an email, isn't that secure? Let me just get myself back to where I was. The answer is yeah. Incredibly, even if you send a PDF to your client, the PDFs themselves can be intercepted, altered, and then sent on. So an email sent from me to Clive can be intercepted, can be altered without Clive realizing that it's happened. Let's look at another scenario here. This is about asking your clients for ID documents, so things like passports and driving licenses.
Are you asking for ID by email? Passports, driving licenses, and bank statements? Stop. Emails are not secure. A hacker can intercept the email and steal your client's ID. Identity theft is a nightmare for your client and a GDPR breach for your business. The solution is Alpha Legal. Alpha Legal, easy, safe, and secure.
So a little bit of disclosure here, and this is not a sales pitch. Alpha Legal is a product that one of my software companies produces, but we've produced it for a real need, and the need is something that I've seen over the last 2 years in particular, which is a scenario where emails are being intercepted, they're being altered, and the recipient doesn't know. Now, in the situation of a bank transfer, for example, so that first video I showed, the situation is that the solicitor has sold a house for a client. They're about to make the transfer of funds. In a particular case that I have personal experience with, the bank details were sent in 2 separate emails. The solicitor thought they were okay because they had 2 separate copies of it. The bank account turned out to be the hacker's bank account. The funds were transferred and they could not be recovered, and they were literally hundreds of thousands of pounds down. Another client of mine regularly has supplier invoices that come into their accounts department. These are invoices for tens of thousands of pounds. They're a manufacturing company buying in products, raw materials, and then turning them into a product. The invoices come in as PDFs with look perfect, but the bank account details have been changed, and again they can pay out to the wrong company. It's such a risk. You must not be sending or asking for confidential, financially sensitive, or identity-based information by email. Now, Alpha Legal, which is our service, there is one of many. The point is, though, you must use a secure service like Alpha Legal to request information like this. You must not do it by email. Someone's asking in the chat, lots of questions coming up now about can emails be encrypted? What about things like PDFs with passwords on? The bottom line is possibly, but probably not. Most things like PDFs, which people imagine, if you've got a PDF, it cannot be altered. Just forget that. PDFs are really easy for a hacker to change. Lots of different ways of doing it, even password protected PDFs. What about sharing documents with things like Dropbox? Yeah, that can be a successful way of doing it, but then you've got to share passwords and things. You've got to think about what happens to the documents when you download them from Dropbox and put them on your laptop. You've then got possibly the client's ID documents as a photograph of their driving license or password on your laptop. That's now not secure. Lots of people come up with different methods for doing it. The problem is, of anything that you use that involves you downloading the documents at your end or the client having a copy at their end, again, isn't secure. But essentially, if you're doing this by email, have a look at Alpha Legal or similar services, and try and get into the habit of doing your confidential transactions that way. I'm not suggesting you don't use email at all. Emails between people which don't have sensitive information, obviously that's fine. But anything with bank details, bank accounts, ID documents, you've got to stop using email. Use Alpha Legal or use something else. If you sign up for Alpha Legal today or in the next day or two, you've got a space on the sign up page to use a promotional code of webinar 50. You'll get 50 extra credits for watching this webinar if you do that. So that's webinar 50 is your promo code. You get 50 credits anyway. Credits are used when you're actually requesting information from clients. So if you ask for an ID request, for example, that's 5 credits. So it's about it, and you buy credits to use the system. That's how the system works. So an ID request with a client can cost as little as £1, so £1. And think of the protection you're giving yourself, and think of the hassle and pain you'd get if that ID was stolen in transit, or worst case, just the dreadful scenario, which has happened, like I say, to clients of mine that have actually paid out to the wrong accounts. Some of you asking about whether you can claim on insurance if that happens. It depends. Not always, and very often the money is unrecoverable, but unrecoverable by the time that you've told the bank the money's been dispersed. So you've got to stop it happening in the first place. I can't underline that enough. There's a quick just flash there of the screen for Alpha Legal in case you want to try us out with the promo code there as well. We do have a COVID form as well built into Alpha Legal. So if you're seeing a client at home or they're coming to see you, there's a COVID questionnaire that we've built in. That's free. We don't charge for that. So you can use for all sorts of things, but it's a secure messaging system, essentially, guaranteed to be secure, built with security from the ground up. Emails are not secure. You must stop using emails. I think you mentioned that your Countrywide, you're going to be doing the same.
This is Robin's Alpha Legal. He belongs to Start Software. It's nothing to do with. But I've pestered Robin for probably years on putting something in place because, and I read all the things on there about Mindcast and different things, Safe4. They do a part job. We continually are communicating with clients in this business, and to be honest, in some respects, we've gone backwards. If we look at ProBank, we're sending money out now. We send a letter to our clients to get their bank account details. So we've gone backwards. And in us going backwards, what's happened there is the clients have got more upset. They think we're taking the mick that we're actually sending it by, like, why can't we do it by email? They don't understand the insecurity of the email process. So for me, as a business owner, what I'm saying a bit further forward is email's a problem. Every time you use it, we're saying passing information, we're answering client questions, we're giving information all the time on the email. How are we going to replace all of those things that email do? Now, none of that's going to be done overnight, but slowly but surely, and certainly money transactions has got to stop immediately, and we've stopped it now. We do not pass any money transaction through email. We have people who work with us know we've got Tracker, and Tracker's secure. So a department will ask accounts to pay money and it will go through Tracker. It will not go through the email or a piece of paper or anything that can be looked at. And for me, you just got to look a bit further down the road and think, well, how are we going to replace everything? There's some good systems out there now.
You are, absolutely, yeah. People asking really good questions here. So I think it struck a chord with people. Can you send your, should I be using a secure service to send my invoice to a client? Good question. I think it depends on, you know, the level. I think that's probably okay depending on the amount of money that's being transferred. If you think about the potential loss that your client could have or you could have, if it's something that, you know, you could manage, then I guess that's probably something you could handle. But if you're talking about thousands of pounds, well, I wouldn't know, because if that, you know, if several £1,000s goes missing from a client to you, what's going to happen there? You know, if it's tens of pounds or £20, well, that's a bit different, isn't it?
I suspect that though, if they intercept that invoice and change the details on the invoice, and the client pays,
absolutely, yeah,
pays to a bank account on that invoice, you're going to get a claim against you. There's no two ways about it.
Well, that's right.
Your fault.
Yeah,
your fault, Rachel.
The Alpha Legal, does it facilitate signing documents? Yeah, we've been asked for this, Philip, so that's coming out shortly. So we've got signing portal and the document sharing portal that's going to be built into Alpha Legal. That's the next features coming out in Alpha Legal. You can sign up for it's only £10 a month. That's all that the subscription is. You can cancel at any time, obviously. So £10 a month gets you into the system, and then, yeah, these other features are coming on board. But whatever you do, whatever action you decide to take after this webinar, stop asking for ID for financial information by email. Honestly, the consequences of it going wrong, which I've seen personally so many times in the last 12 months, it's been a real issue the last 12 months, have been dreadful, and it's not going away. Emails are not suddenly going to become secure. You have to find another method to do it. So we're just about at the end of the webinar. I'm just going to wrap up for you for the 6 things that I covered. Treat your phone and laptop, you know, as securely as your wallet and keys. It's as important as everything else these days. Use the best antivirus you can. That's really, really important. Scams, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Make sure, again, another action from today for you, get somebody to prove to you that whatever backup system you've got is working and can be used to recover. I almost guarantee that they'll have a problem when they try. Cyber Essentials, that's really good. Cyber Essentials is a government-backed initiative to try and get all businesses to a certain level. It's about the level I've gone through today, actually. It's a good briefing for Cyber Essentials. It doesn't cost very much money at all. Really good, means you can put the logo on your business and it shows you take security sensibly. So Google that afterwards, Cyber Essentials. And absolutely in bold, underline 3 times, stop using email for sensitive data. Use Alpha Legal, use another system, but stop using email. It's not secure, it's not safe. Hope that was useful for you. Clive, you've got to wrap up with a few bits and pieces about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't, you know, say money more for me. That I think as a company, Countrywide, I think we're fairly good with our communication with consultants, advisors, because that's going through software, and that side, but that software is secure. So any communication through there, and we'll start doing more and more communication through the software by using notices through the software rather than sending them out by email, and that's a better system, I think. What we haven't done particularly well as a company, is communicating with clients very effectively at all. And we've all used email, and we've just sat on email for God knows how many years, and that's it. And now we've got to say, look, we've got to get rid of email, and we've got to find another secure way where we can talk, communicate, send documents, get documents back to our clients through a secure system that we know is secure and not going to be breached at all. And that can't be email, in my opinion, because it bothers me with email. I see 1 or 2 saying about using 1 or 2 other things, like where I see the question.
Yeah, they've dropped it off the top now, haven't they?
Yeah, I think WhatsApp.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The problem is with WhatsApp, I imagine, are going to claim they're secure.
Yeah, well, they are from phone to phone, they're secure, but it's what each end.
But those photos and that information you're sending through WhatsApp are on your telephone. So lose your telephone, and the piece has got everything. So when you look at a system, it can't be part of it secure. For me, it's got to be secure right from the start of the process, right to the end, not just the middle bit secure. Yeah. Where you're saving it, both ends, is just a waste of time.
A couple other questions just before we'll just go on to the final slide for you. Yeah, people saying, but it's will clients use this? Yeah, well, Alpha Legal is really simple for the client. They just get a couple of messages on the phone, they tap them, and it's got to be easy. I totally agree. Whatever you put in place has got to be easy for your client, otherwise they just simply won't use it. Someone's saying that they've been scared to death. I didn't mean to scare you to death, but I hope I've scared you into taking some action. Really simple. Yeah, as on the summary slide here, just get yourself antivirus, get your backups checked, have a look at Cyber Essentials, and stop using email.
It's all been designed to be easy for the client, isn't it? If you look at the ID app, the ID app is far, far superior to what we currently got in our software, because you're just taking photos of driving license and passports. It's reading the passport number, you know, so you haven't got to look particularly and punch all that correct number in. That's a pain in the backside. It actually reads that automatically for you. So, and that the client can fill it in 2 or 3 minutes. And we've been using apps for opening bank accounts now pretty much for about 4 or 5 months, and I must admit, opening a bank account for probate or live trust was a real problem area before, but all of a sudden it's gone. I'm getting no complaints from clients. And they're dealing with an app, slightly different app, but that will transfer over to Alpha Legal now with the app we're using. But yeah, most clients, it's great.
Phil, this is the final thing. Phil says, I've just set up facial ID on my phone and I've received an email from a facelift provider. Phil Barham, that's genius. We'll finish on that.